Pain lives where the light forgets to look, behind the curtain of practiced smiles, beneath the calm voice that never trembles, inside the silence people mistake for peace. It sleeps in corners of the heart, wrapped in dust and unsaid words, waiting for the night to grow heavy, so it can breathe without being seen. I carry it like a second shadow, always following, never questioned, a dark twin stitched to my footsteps, faithful even when hope leaves me behind. In daylight, it learns the art of disguise, wears laughter like borrowed clothes, nods politely in conversations, pretends it understands the language of joy. But when the world turns its face away, when doors close and clocks grow loud, the shadow stretches across the room, and pain stands up, finally honest. It speaks in memories I didn't invite, in voices that know my name too well, in echoes of promises that dissolved before they ever learned to last. Pain hidden in the shadows is not loud like storms. It is quiet like slow rain, soaking everything without warning. It remembers every moment I forgave, every time I swallowed my own cry, every goodbye that stayed unfinished, every love that chose absence over truth. It sits beside me when I'm alone, not to comfort, not to judge, just to remind me of what I survived, and what still survives inside me. Sometimes it feels like a bruise on the soul, invisible, yet tender to every touch, reacting to careless words, aching from gentle questions. People ask, "Are you okay?" And I answer with practiced ease, because explaining shadows to sunlight has never been a simple task. Pain does not always come from wounds. Sometimes it is born from waiting, from hoping too long at closed doors, from loving places that no longer exist. It hides behind strength, behind patience mistaken for peace, behind the habit of being the strong one, the one who never breaks publicly. At night, the shadows grow honest, walls listen without interrupting, and pain pours out its story into the dark that understands it, tells me how tired it is of being ignored, how heavy it feels to be carried, without ever being acknowledged. Pain hidden in the shadows is not asking for attention, it is asking for truth, for one moment of being seen. I have learned its language slowly, learned when to sit with it, when to let it cry through me, when to let silence finish its sentences. Some nights it feels endless, like walking through a tunnel that keeps swallowing its own exit, like breathing under deep water. Other nights it softens its grip, rests quietly beside my heartbeat, as if reminding me that pain too can grow tired. It has taught me strange lessons, how empathy grows from scars, how kindness often comes from those bleeding in secret. Pain hidden in the shadows has shaped the way I see the world, made me gentle with broken voices, made me cautious with careless joy. I know now that not all battles roar. Some fight in silence. Some leave no visible wounds, yet demand every ounce of strength. I carry my shadow still, but I no longer pretend it isn't there, because naming pain is the first crack where light enters. And maybe one day, the shadows will thin, the pain will loosen its hold, and I will step forward lighter than before. Until then, I walk with honesty, with scars that don't need display, with pain hidden in the shadows, but no longer hidden from myself. The shadows know my footsteps by heart. They move aside when I enter the room, as if they have memorized my weight, as if my sorrow has its own shape. Pain walks softly now, no longer rushing to overwhelm me. It has learned my breathing patterns, learned when to sit, when to rise. There are moments it surprises me, appearing in laughter that fades too fast, in songs that suddenly feel heavier, in smiles that ache at the edges. I look into mirrors and see calm, but behind my eyes, storms remain, clouds circling thoughts I never voice, thunder waiting for permission to speak. Pain hidden in the shadows does not hate happiness, it simply fears being forgotten. When joy finally learns my name, I have seen it soften at kindness, seen it pause when someone listens, even if they don't understand, even if they don't try to fix me. Because pain is tired of solutions, tired of being rushed toward healing. Sometimes it only wants to be allowed to exist. There are nights I forgive myself, and pain watches quietly, as if unsure whether to leave or simply sit closer. It has become a witness to my growth, to the way I bend but don't collapse, to the way I rebuild silently, brick by brick, breath by breath. Pain hidden in the shadows has seen my weakest moments, and strangely, it never used them against me. Instead, it guarded them, kept them safe from judgment, wrapped them in darkness, where no one could mock them. I realize now, pain was never my enemy. It was a messenger I avoided, a truth I wasn't ready to hear. It told me where I mattered too little, where I stayed too long, where I confused endurance with love, and silence with strength. As days pass, the shadow changes its shape, less sharp, less suffocating, more like a memory than a wound. Pain hidden in the shadows still walks beside me, but now there is space between us, room for air, room for hope. I don't know when it will fully fade, or if it ever truly will, but I know this: I am no longer afraid of it, because even shadows need light to exist, and I am learning slowly to become that light for myself, without apology, without fear. Morning arrives without asking permission, and I rise with it out of habit, carrying sleep in my eyes and history in my chest. Pain wakes before I do, already seated in the quiet, watching light creep across the floor, like a stranger unsure of welcome. It does not block the sunrise. It only stands where light thins, where brightness hesitates, where warmth takes time to settle. Pain hidden in the shadows knows how to wait patiently. It learned that skill from me, from all the
moments primers han durat.
I move through the day carefully, measuring my words, choosing smiles with precision, avoiding cracks where truth might spill. Every interaction feels rehearsed, as if my life were a stage, and pain sits behind the curtain, listening to applause meant for survival. There are places that awaken it, streets where memories still breathe, corners where laughter once lived, benches that remember who I was. Pain does not rush me away. It lets me stand there trembling, because it knows some healing begins with staying. I have learned that pain remembers details: the color of a sky during goodbye, the tone of a voice that changed, the silence that followed broken trust. It remembers what I try to forget, not to punish me, but to keep the truth intact, unpolished, unedited. Pain hidden in the shadows is a historian of the heart, recording moments exactly as they were, not as I wish them to be. There are times I resent it, times I want to escape myself, to live lighter, unaware, untouched by yesterday's weight. But pain reminds me gently that forgetting without healing only teaches wounds how to return disguised. So I sit with it again, in the quiet spaces of my mind, where honesty feels dangerous and vulnerability feels raw. I ask pain what it needs, and it answers softly, "Stop pretending you were never hurt." Those words linger like smoke, uncomfortable, undeniable, curling around truths I buried too deeply. Pain hidden in the shadows asks for acknowledgement, not pity, not drama, just the courage to admit impact. I begin to speak my truth slowly, not to the world, but to myself, where it matters most. I admit the nights I cried silently, the strength that drained unnoticed, the love I gave unevenly, the patience that cost me myself. Pain listens without interruption, without judgment, as if it has waited years for this confession. Something loosens then, not all at once, but enough to breathe deeper, enough to stand taller. I realize pain is not infinite. It only feels that way when trapped inside silence, when denied release. Pain hidden in the shadows shrinks when named, softens when understood, weakens when met with honesty. There are still hard days, days when shadows stretch long, when memories return uninvited, when strength feels borrowed. But even then, I am different now, because I no longer disappear. Inside my own suffering, I walk beside pain, not beneath it, aware of its presence, but not ruled by it. I allow myself rest, allow myself boundaries, allow myself to step away from what drains me. Pain notices these changes, stands a little farther back, as if respecting my growth, as if proud in its own quiet way. Pain hidden in the shadows is no longer the center of my world, just a chapter in a long story, no longer the ending. I begin to imagine a future where my heart feels lighter, where shadows exist, but no longer dominate the room, where laughter doesn't feel borrowed, where joy doesn't feel fragile, where peace is not suspicious, but natural. I don't rush toward that future. I walk toward it honestly, with scars uncovered, with lessons intact, because healing is not erasing pain. It is learning to live, without hiding from it, without letting it define me. And even if pain remains, even if shadows still follow, I know now, I am stronger than both. There are afternoons when time slows down, when the air feels heavier than usual, and every breath carries echoes of things I never said aloud. Pain sits quietly in those moments, not demanding attention, only reminding me that healing is not always loud. I watch people pass with easy smiles, their laughter floating like feathers, and I wonder how many of them are hiding storms behind calm faces. Pain hidden in the shadows teaches me not to judge appearances, because I know how convincing strength can look, how carefully broken hearts can behave. Sometimes I envy those who forget easily, who let go without resistance, who sleep without being visited by old conversations and lost warmth. But pain whispers a different truth, that depth is often born from suffering, that sensitivity is shaped by what once tried to destroy us. I remember the version of me, before the wounds learned my name, before trust came with conditions, before love demanded proof of survival. That version still lives somewhere, not untouched but wiser, waiting patiently for gentler days to arrive. Pain does not mock that hope. It guards it carefully, because even shadows know the value of fragile light. There are days when memories return softly, not to wound, but to remind me how far I have already walked. Pain hidden in the shadows changes tone with time. What once screamed now speaks in whispers. I learn to listen without fear, to hear without collapsing, to acknowledge without reopening every old wound. Some nights I forgive others, not because they deserve it, but because my heart is tired of carrying their weight. Pain observes that choice closely, as if measuring my strength, as if noting the moment. I chose peace over bitterness. Forgiveness does not erase scars. It simply loosens their grip, allows the heart to move freely, without dragging the past behind it. Pain hidden in the shadows does not vanish after forgiveness, but it becomes lighter, less sharp, less demanding. I begin to trust small joys again, a quiet morning, a sincere smile, a moment of stillness without fear. Each gentle moment feels unfamiliar, like learning a new language, but pain encourages me silently, reminding me I deserve softness too. There are setbacks, of course, days when old wounds ache suddenly, when shadows stretch too far, when resilience feels thin. But now I know how to pause, how to rest without guilt, how to sit with discomfort, without letting it consume me. Pain hidden in the shadows no longer controls my direction. It walks behind me now, a reminder, not a ruler. I start choosing myself more often, choosing honesty over endurance, choosing distance over self-betrayal, choosing peace over proving my worth. Pain notices these choices, and with each one, it loosens its hold, as if understanding its role is ending, not disappearing, but transforming, from a wound into a lesson carried gently. I realized something important then, that pain was never meant to stay forever, came to teach, to protect, to awaken. Pain hidden in the shadows helped me recognize my limits, helped me see where I gave too much, where I forgot myself entirely. Now I move forward slower, but stronger, quieter, but clearer. The shadows still exist. They always will, but they no longer scare me, because I know what lives within them. And within those shadows, I no longer find only pain, but resilience, wisdom, and a heart that refused to give up. There are quiet victories no one applauds, moments when I choose calm over chaos, when I breathe through memories, instead of running from them. Pain watches these moments closely, as if counting them, as if learning that I am no longer the person it once had to protect. I stand at the edge of old habits, the urge to disappear, the instinct to endure silently, the reflex of blaming myself. Pain hidden in the shadows steps between me and those edges, not as a threat, but as a warning learned too late. Tells me, you don't have to suffer to belong. You don't have to break to be loved. You don't have to stay where you shrink. These words feel unfamiliar, like clothes that don't yet fit, but I keep wearing them, hoping they will shape themselves to me. There are nights when loneliness returns, soft but persistent, tapping gently on my chest, like a memory asking permission. Pain does not amplify it anymore. It lets loneliness speak plainly, without distortion, without turning it into despair. I learned that loneliness is not failure. It is space, space waiting to be filled with something truer than before. Pain hidden in the shadows helps me sit inside that space, helps me resist the urge to fill it with anything just to feel less alone. I begin to value quiet connections, people who listen without fixing, who stay without demanding explanations, who see me without asking me to perform. Pain softens around such presence, like ice melting slowly, not rushing, not resisting, just allowing warmth to do its work. There are mornings I wake lighter, not healed completely, but less burdened, less guarded, less afraid of my own thoughts. Pain notices this shift, retreats another step into the background, no longer the loudest voice, no longer the center of attention. Pain hidden in the shadows becomes a quiet archive now, holding stories I survived, not wounds I still bleed from. I look back without collapsing, remember without drowning, acknowledge without reopening. Every scar all at once. This too feels like strength, the ability to remember, without losing myself. Inside the memory, there are moments I smile genuinely, and pain does not interrupt, does not whisper doubt, does not remind me to be cautious. It allows joy to exist unchallenged, as if understanding that happiness earned through honesty is not a threat. Pain hidden in the shadows no longer fears light, because light no longer denies it, no longer pretends it never existed. I stop explaining my past, stop justifying my boundaries, stop apologizing for the way survival shaped me. Pain approves of this silence, this firm, peaceful refusal, because it knows how expensive explanations can be. I grow comfortable with being misunderstood, with not correcting every assumption, with letting people believe whatever helps them sleep. Pain hidden in the shadows teaches me this final lesson slowly. Not everyone deserves access to my deepest truths. Some truths are sacred, earned through patience, shared only with those who know how to hold them gently. I choose myself again, not dramatically, not loudly, but consistently. Each choice builds distance between me and the person who once survived everything silently.